Hey YouTube, Untamed here. Today I'm pretty excited to do a side-by-side comparison between my own personal 2024 Toyota Sequoia TRD Pro next to a 2021 Toyota Land Cruiser Heritage Edition. For those of you who frequent my channel, you know I love the Land Cruiser here. I've owned it a few times. It is a spectacular platform, and I would argue it is the last true Land Cruiser that we will ever see within the United States. So in today's video, I'm going to do a pretty in-depth side-by-side comparison because a lot of you guys know this Sequoia here really wasn't intended to be a permanent fit for our family. Rather, we're going to own it until the right deal came along for a 21 Land Cruiser Heritage Edition with the third row. This one happens to have a third row, but unfortunately the mileage is a little far up there. We're going to get into that in this video, so stick with me. All right, let's start with the colors. We have ice cap white for the Sequoia TRD Pro over there and magnetic gray metallic over here on the Heritage Edition. Magnetic gray metallic on the Heritage only came in 2021. In 2020, they also had the Heritage Edition, limited to 1,200 units. They were split between white, the pearl white, as well as the midnight black metallic. So we only had black and white as options in 2020 when the Heritage Edition was introduced for the 200 series here. So ice cap, which used to be called super white, now the name for the Sequoia's white here. You guys let me know which one you think looks better, and I'll shoot you guys straight. I always have preferred the Land Cruiser. You know, not when it comes to aesthetics, but just the overall feel to it. In fact, if I'm being totally honest with you, the first time I ever looked at this Land Cruiser, I remember being largely underwhelmed. You know, there's not a whole lot to look at, not a whole lot of aesthetics to it. I love the blackened headlights, that looks good, and the darkened chrome up front. I've always been a huge fan of that. But that's not why you buy a Land Cruiser. You don't buy this Land Cruiser for the flair, for the frills, right? You're buying it because this platform here, this body-on-frame design platform tied to that 5.7 liter V8 can go forever. And it really has. It has developed a tremendous reputation under the 200 series platform here. This Sequoia, you cannot say the same. You cannot have the same level of confidence with this twin turbo 3.5 liter V6, right? Hybridized V6 with the iForce Max in particular. That does not offer the same level of confidence, and it will never offer the same level of confidence comparatively to this. However, the price tags, this one here has, I believe, 43 or 44,000 miles. We'll hop in it here in a second. I'll show you the interiors as well. 44,000 miles on it. 83,000 and some change is how much they want for it. So 3 years old at this point. Brand new, this was 91,000 back in 2021. So they've only dropped the price $7,000 or $8,000 off of MSRP back in 2021 for a 3-year-old vehicle with 44,000 miles on it. It's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people right now. Even for myself, I'm a die-hard Land Cruiser fan. I have a hard time swallowing that pill with that kind of mileage, especially when you can get this, a brand new 24 Sequoia TRD Pro with 0 miles on it for the same price. MSRP on this was $83,000. I was able to get $3,000 off of it when I bought it, so about 80 grand. So 80 grand for a brand new one, or 84,000 for one that's been very, very well used at this point. It's just a tough call. Not to mention, had I not bought my very, very first Heritage Edition for $10,000 off of MSRP back in 2020. I got a midnight black metallic one. You can check out my old videos on it. I walk you through the process. $10,000 off of MSRP. And because it was a 2020, it did not have the third row, MSRP was right around 89,000 and some change for it. So I paid right around 80 grand even for it. So having once bought a brand new one back then for 80 grand makes it especially difficult to pay current prices on them. But I likely will again at some point. I would aim for one that has 15 to 20,000 miles on it. If you're going to be spending a premium on a used Land Cruiser, you may as well get a lightly used one with minimal miles and exceptional conditions. So this one here, it's been enjoyed a little bit, but I still think Kengar Ford has priced it fairly amongst the competition currently out there. Love this classic Toyota script badge out back, unique to the Heritage Edition. I love that. And these giant bulky taillights, I've always been a fan of that. But when you look at it for the first time, you're always like, what in the world? But when you actually turn it on, the LED lighting integrated within it, it's actually pretty complex looking. It looks great in my opinion. I love the fact that it has a split hatch out back. Again, we'll pop in there and I'll kind of show it to you as we dive through this video here. But I love the fact that the top 2/3 comes up and that bottom tailgate pops down. Love that. Show you the wheels. Obviously you get these bronze forged BBS wheels. Same exact wheels that came on the Tundra TRD Pro that I have on my own 2021 Tundra TRD Pro, but of course bronze, and I think they look awesome. Wrapped in some newish looking BF Goodrich KO2s. What tire size did he go with? Because I know some of you will ask. 285 60 18s. That's a good look. I've done those before as well. And you can't go wrong with magnetic gray metallic. I think that's just a timeless color on a timeless design vehicle here. Always love that front end. And it really isn't until you're up next to one or sitting inside one of these where you truly begin to realize and understand the appeal. When you open up the doors, it's just very sturdy, very heavy. It's just a heavy feeling door. And I know me opening it on video doesn't show you that, but it really is. And like, especially even when you compare it to the Sequoia over here. Although the Sequoia is not flimsy quite like my 2021 Tundra TRD Pro, you can still feel the difference. There's a whole lot of heft to this, and you can tell that this Land Cruiser was truly overbuilt like they say it was. A lot of Toyota technicians will proudly say, and meaningfully say it, that they go into building these Land Cruisers to last 25 plus years with minimal issue and minimal maintenance required. The overall feel of the materials in here, I think, feel better compared to that Sequoia, and I'm going to show you, remind you here in a second what that Sequoia looks like. But just a lot of metal bezels, metal finishes here. But like stuff like this, having those scratches on it all throughout here. If I'm going to pay this kind of money ever again for a used Land Cruiser, I'm going to get a perfect one, right? If you're gonna splurge on one of these, get one that's near perfect. And this one just looks like it was enjoyed a little bit more. Black headliner, kind of like a suede-like material for the headliner, a standard sunroof. But these seats, I tell you what, they're extremely, extremely comfortable. When you sit in this next to sitting in one of those seats over there, these are far more comfortable, especially for longer drives. I'll show you the back seat real quick. If you're a dad like me, this is where things start to get important, right? And this is kind of where I'll kind of open the dialogue of why we are honestly starting to prefer that Sequoia over there comparatively to the Land Cruiser. We had the captain's chairs out back in that Land Cruiser, and I'll show you here in a second, but the captain's chairs allow our kiddos to walk in between here and get to the third row. Full third row, captain's chairs in the center, it seats us just fine. However, the problem is with the cargo space over there beyond that third row is pretty bleak, and I'll remind you of that here in a second. So a lot of this kind of old-fashioned wood grain material around a lot of the bezels. You can see it up there on the door, or you can see there on the door here. I don't know. I could do without that personally. I always have never really loved that part of it. But at the end of the day, this is kind of this dates back, what, to 09? I forget, I think it's 09 for the 200 series. So it's a very old, long in the tooth platform. A ton of headroom, more headroom in this compared to what you're gonna find in the Sequoia. You get in there and you just feel like you're in a fishbowl, right? You look around, huge window out back, giant windows all around. I absolutely love that. And that just offers a lot of confidence while you're driving these things, right? So having that excellent visibility gives you a commanding view of the road. It's like stuff like this, I would just expect to not be on mine. But they did say they're getting a lot of attention on this, and I assure you this will sell at that price point. I think they did price it fairly, given the overall condition and the mileage. Because it's not uncommon for these to be creeping into the 90s, right? Mid-90s if it has very low miles on it. Some people are still trying to fetch over 100. I won't say who. You could probably figure it out pretty easily for these things. And they're just not worth that. Having actually spent that before on one of them, it's just not worth it, in my opinion. These are comfortably $80,000 to $90,000 vehicles with low miles. But you got the third row, which is harder to find. Less of these were produced with that third row option, only in 2021. But I love that tailgate. Yeah, my kiddos, we have watched car shows. We just sat on the back of it here in town before with our previous one. We love just chilling out in the tailgate, watching the cars go by with a little bit of an umbrella over us, right? So definitely love that. And I wish that Sequoia over there had that. Let me fire it up and remind you what we're working with over here. Show you the, I think it's a 10-way adjustable seat here. Rubber floor mats, Land Cruiser that lights up right here. But right, just sitting in here, it just is extremely comfortable and I love it. Driver side and passenger grab handles out back as well. Foot on a brake, push to start. Keys in the pocket, of course. And you hear that 5.7 liter V8 roar to life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is reason enough to buy a Land Cruiser 200 series. You still get that V8. And unfortunately, that's just a dying breed. We all know it. And although gas prices may go up a little bit, even if they continue to go up, I feel like the values of these will remain extremely high as we go forward. But a very simplistic analog gauge system here, display rather, with a high resolution center stack, which I always like that. It's not flickering. I think that's just the refresh rate on the camera here. This here, it's pretty bleak, pretty lackluster, and very dated, right? This is just a very old, archaic. Look at that. I mean, it's just, when you do get into the Sequoia, you're like, wow, that is a world of difference, and you can tell that Sequoia is next gen by comparison when it comes to tech. But that is not always a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot more to go wrong within that Sequoia comparatively to this. Heated, cool seats here. Heated steering wheel, you know all this. You've watched my videos before, you know what you're looking at here. Center diff lock, traction control, ECT, blah, blah, blah. Crawl control over here. If you find yourself getting stuck, especially with these KO2 tires on it, you're in a sticky situation for sure. So there you have it. I will pop the hood for fun. Hood latch right here. And, oh, well, excuse me, wrong one. That was a gas cap. Show you that for fun. There is a wireless charging tray in here for those of you who don't know. But I love the metal bezels throughout here that extend onto the door here. Let me shut the saw a little love mark on this one in particular. Where was it at? Not huge and easily fixable, of course. We got a little door ding on it right there. Let's look underneath the hood. So you do have struts. You'll have to manually pitch it up. 5.7 liter V8, 381 horsepower and 401 foot-pounds of torque. And that is plenty. For 9 out of 10 people, it's going to be plenty. I believe the towing capacity is right around that 9,000 mark. Again, plenty for what most people will ever need their vehicle to do. This right here is out of this world with that twin-turbo iForce Max, hybridized iForce Max here. We have 437 horsepower, I think 583 foot-pounds of torque, which is absolutely insane. And you do feel it when you put your foot on that accelerator pedal. So there you have it. This right here, a lot less complex, a lot more proven, and well, you can have a lot more peace of mind overall in this. So that is reason enough to buy the 200 series. Let me turn this off real quick. And let's look at that Sequoia for a few minutes here, guys. So I do love the look of the Sequoia. You know, obviously very similar to the Tundra up front. We do have a bit of a gap. This white part right here is a gap that we have on the Sequoia that the Tundra does not have. And I think that actually adds to the look of it by a lot. You know, otherwise the black just goes straight down. It looks like a Fu Manchu, if you will. So I like the look of this. I think the body lines are very proportionate that extend out back. Both the Heritage Edition and the TRD Pro Sequoia here have a blacked out mirror caps. You can kind of see it there. So that is unique to the Heritage Edition over there. But just the body lines in general, how they swoop back to that tail light, I think this is a very good look. One thing about the Sequoia, and if you've searched for one before, you know what I'm talking about. They produce actually a lot less of these compared to the Tundra, and that kind of adds to the better resale value so far. Let me say so far on purpose, because that could very well change, right? When it comes to resaleability, the residual value between these two vehicles here, the Heritage Edition will for sure do better in the long run. There's no, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it because I own this one, but that is something to consider, at least between this and the Tundra. If you've been weighing between the two of them, this will hold value a little bit better. Only a single side exit, black chrome tipped exhaust. Dual exhaust, but single side exit, of course. Out back, never really loved the swooping out back here. Sequoia across the bottom. That just kind of feels very, I don't know, Toyota Sienna-ish. It's kind of like that minivan look, and this is where things start to get a little sour, right? I don't like the full hatch. I like that tailgate system over there in the Land Cruiser, but here is where the problem lays. So keep in mind, I have 4 children. We had hockey today this morning, so that's a part of what you're seeing here. This is not ideal, right? Sure, you can see plenty of kiddos back here, 1, 2, then maybe even 3 out back here on the third row, total of 5 kiddos, but if you have 5 kiddos, what does that likely mean? It likely means that you have things that will go with those children, whether it's for sporting events, anything, right? So, and you need some cargo space, and this just isn't ideal. The fact that we have 4 kiddos, we go 1, 2, 3, 4, that gives us this right here. But because it does have the iForce Max, the battery pack is actually right underneath here in the cargo space, bumping this all up, which forces you to have, you can't see it well, forces you to have this kind of little tray system here, which is pretty pathetic. I'll call it what it is, okay? I don't love this, but at least it's something at the end of the day. Cup holders and all that jazz for the kiddos out back. Look at the carnage. Have 4 kids, they said. It'd be fun, they said. Here we are. Look at this. What is... Okay. Sorry, I gotta see that. All right. So I know a lot of people don't love, look at the little mini hands, little mini hands up here. How about that? So a lot of people don't love the digital camo, both on these seats, which I'll show you here in a second, but as well as around the fender flares. I personally do like this, and I've always liked this, even on the Tundra, of course. I think this looks good. I think these forged BBS wheels were an upgrade. I actually prefer the look of these comparatively to those. You tell me what you think. Both forged BBSs, equally strong, both 18 inches as well. Obviously, I did put on some aftermarket tires. These are some 295/70 18s. These are some Nitto Ridge Grapplers, which I really have grown to love. They're a hybrid tire between all-terrain and mud-terrain. Starting in 2024, we did get that painted TRD upper control arm, which looks great. Kind of a beefier look comparatively to what we saw in 2023 for the Sequoia here in particular. But just look at those body lines. I think it looks good. Definitely turns heads. People really like the look of this. I personally am a huge fan of the roof rack. This has it too, and I think this one does have it. They just have it inside. But I love that look with that roof rack up there. It does provide a lot of wind noise, if we're being honest though. Right around 60 miles per hour, you start hearing it quite a bit. Fake hood vents here, TRD Pro. Again, it just looks good. Got that TRD light bar across the front. There's your Toyota Safety Sense adaptive cruise control with your camera integrated up front there. Rigid industry fog lamps down below. Kind of a cool little feature. You get a little TRD integrated within your ambers here, and because it is a certain width, you're required to have those marker lights on the side as well as up front here. So it's a Department of Transportation requirement. Let me remind you of what the interior looks like on the Sequoia. There you have it. And I apologize in advance, hasn't been cleaned, obviously, but here you have it. So not a bad place to be. Much firmer seats comparatively to that 200 series over there. You got some chintzy stuff like this, right? Feels like an AutoZone aftermarket thought there. Don't love that. But overall, the steering wheel feels good. It's a nice design, like the little red leather strip up top, but a lot of hard plastics in here, right? And it still is not a cheap vehicle by any means. It's 83,000-ish, give or take a little bit depending on exactly how you spec them, but they're right around there. All-weather floor mats look great. Some of your controls here. Before I pop in, I'll show you the back seat here. And this is what I mean. This is why I ultimately pulled the trigger on it. You guys know, if you watch my 4Runner video, I was buying a 4Runner TRD Pro, and this came available. It just kind of was on their lot as I was buying it, and we looped it into the deal. As ugly as that is to say out loud, I understand, but we were able to, like I said, get a few grand off of this if it meant getting it while we were buying that 4Runner, and that's what they did. So shout out to Ken Garf Toyota here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. They're always great to work with. Kevin Harris is great. And look at all the carnage. But this here is why it works. So, you know, the kiddos can come in here. The oldest ones can walk out back there, get in their seats. Elephant can somehow work its way back there too. If we could fit an elephant in here, we can fit. We're good. Look at that. Look at this carnage. What is this? Cousin It sitting in here. All right, but you get my point, right? We can get kiddos in here without opening the back hatch or revolving a seat forward to get the kids in the back, the third row, which would be the case on that Land Cruiser over there, right? We'd have to figure out a way to where we can have one of these seats on the side accessible to pop it forward to get the big kids out back. And that is just hard to do when you have two little ones up here requiring, you know, car seats like this. You can't just like put them there in the middle, one on the side. It doesn't feel right. It's always best to have it behind the driver and passenger seats. So that's a part of the equation that not a lot of people just really think about, especially if you don't have kiddos, multiple kiddos anyway. Got these little sunscreens integrated. It's cool. Black. This is a huge deal, by the way, guys. So I had a 2023 Sequoia TRD Pro, and it has the tan headliner. And as I look back at my old videos of it, feel free to check them out. It really clashes because you had red seats in it, the cockpit red seats, white exterior, and then tan upper up above, and then black down below. So it's just kind of, it was a lot going on as I look back at it. So let's kind of remind you real quick of what this is like. So a lot less drama as you start this up here, but this here is much more ideal. If you live in a cul-de-sac like we do and have a bunch of kiddos, this is starting to feel more appropriate because you get that beautiful reverse camera here, and that is great as you're backing into a cul-de-sac. But a full digital gauge display there. I do like this. Some people find it corny, and I can understand that totally. But I actually like that, the Toyota classic font there across, even though it's kind of a little gaudy. I understand. Oops, I don't think it, oh yeah, because it's not on, but we do have a camera integrated for the rear camera, or the rear view mirror here. Yeah, there you have it, guys. There is, and sorry I made this a long video, but this Sequoia here has a lot more bells and whistles, and although I personally would never prefer this over the old Brute there, my wife does actually really appreciate it. She appreciates all the additional tech in here, and I hate to admit to that out loud, but she really is enjoying it. And she does find herself really leaning on it and leveraging it, all the safety features here, which is, you know, at the end of the day, that is most important, ladies and gentlemen. And it actually seats the kiddos without lifting the rear hatch to let them in. So that is a big deal. I'll show you underneath the hood, and then we will wrap up this video here. A lot of cheap materials extend to the door card, a little bit of leather on top here with that nice stitching anyway, but you know, plastic handles. A lot of plastic down here. Got to keep costs down somewhat, I would say, out of one side of my mouth, but the other side I would say is still 83 grand. Let's pop this open. Some more struts on this one, which is nice. There's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on underneath that shroud there, engine cover. This iForce Max is a very complex platform. We're seeing a lot of issues with it, not so much of the iForce Max, but just in general with the Tundra, which shares the same 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 here. So part of me is a little nervous. Some people are experiencing issues with their Sequoias. It's not as prevalent though as that Tundra, and there is no Sequoia recall as of yet. But at the end of the day, this does offer a lot less peace of mind compared to what's underneath the hood there of that Land Cruiser. Not to mention, one thing that is different between the two, there's a big gap between the front of this vehicle here, the radiator, and actually the engine, right? This huge space right here, which is a part of maybe it collapsing as you crash. Part of that safety rating is probably involved in that, but this is a big gap here, whereas that is a very small gap and then giant engine, which I always kind of like that. It just feels, I don't know, feels more authentic, for lack of better words. But overall, my confidence in working on this hybridized platform is much lower than it would ever be working with that naturally aspirated platform. I digress. So I'll wrap up the video there. Sorry it did turn into a long video, but I did want to, honestly, for my sake, if you guys don't even care, I want to be able to look back at this video and kind of remind myself what are the differences between the two, because I do like every night I look for these Land Cruiser Heritage Editions online and just kind of keep my finger on the pulse of how much they're going for. And they just haven't gone down that much. They have, don't get me wrong, but they still need to come down maybe another $10,000 on average before I start wanting to buy one with confidence at this point, especially when this has scratched the itch for our family. So I'll wrap up the video there. Hopefully this helps out maybe some of you out there who are considering cross-shopping these two very different vehicles, but serve a very similar purpose, right? And they're at a very similar price tag. So let me know what your thoughts are. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Until next time.